going on like that. Just stop. You can't predict all the angles. You don't know everything that's around the corner. Would you just rest? Quiet as it's kept, you don't even have strength enough to survive what you're going through. Would you just rest? Because I'm trying to save you. Rest. I don't know what you're facing today, but I do know that the Lord is able to deliver. He offers rescue. Would you just rest in what He's done for you? Here's the second thing. Rest in the rescue, but now stand in your strong place. Psalmist declares, as he's talking about the Messiah in a roundabout way connected to what Jesus is doing in the New Testament as the cornerstone who the builders rejected. He says, this stone that nobody thought enough about has now become the cornerstone. The cornerstone, the cornerstone. Now y'all know the cornerstone is the part that gives a true reference point for the structure. The cornerstone is the pivot point of strength for the whole thing. You mess with the cornerstone, the whole thing falls down. And we know that Jesus is the chief cornerstone. I look at this text and conservative estimates, if you were to go back in history books, you understand that there would have been some 2.5 million Jewish people converging on the city during this season of the Passover. 2.5 million people hustling and bustling around. Now, within that 2.5 million, thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, would have been caught up in the excitement of the moment. And so Jesus is entering in, and they just get caught up in the excitement. They don't even know who it is. Like, who's that? They just join the party because there's commotion. You got 2.5 million just there. You got tens of thousands caught up in the moment, but really don't have a clue as to what's going on. Then you've got hundreds who have probably been paying attention to all the things that this Jesus has done. But you only have a remnant who really got it. Let me backtrack. 2.5 million people just there. They're in attendance. Tens of thousands excited, making some noise, but that's all they're doing, taking up air, making noise. Hundreds that see, okay, something's going on, but you really only have a remnant who is truly on board with what's happening. Here's where I'm going. Only a remnant were lined up with the cornerstone. Quick theology lesson. The word justification in Christian theology is this idea of what Jesus has done for us is to set us right with God. To set us right with God is to position us in the strongest place that we can be. But in order to be in that strong place, we have got to be so aligned with the cornerstone that His rightness rubs off on us. You know that anytime you're standing next to something that's straight, if you're crooked, it shows. But the closer you get to that which is straight, the more straight, the more justified, the stronger you are. So it's like this. Instead of, in their day, the people would have been lining up with religion. They would have been lining up with tradition. They would have been lining up with legalism. God calls us to line up with grace, to line up with true relationship, to line up with the freedom that He provides for us. That is how the Lord desires to be very present in our lives, when we line up with how He's standing. I was in my basement working in my workshop. My wife was mad because I kind of set off the fire alarm. I was cutting some wood, and it was crazy, but I was working hard because I had to build a new table that was an outfeed table for my table saw. I was working, trying to get stuff right in my workshop. And so the first thing that I had to do was I took the first post that was going to be the post around which everything else lined up. And I said, now this first post, I got to make sure I cut it at exactly 90 degrees. I got to make sure that I cut it and there are no warts or bends in the wood. I got to cut it and stand it up right and line it up right, because if this ain't right, everything's going to be wrong. So I set it up, and then I measured everything else off of that post, so that when I got done, my table was not only straight, but it was strong enough to stand under the weight of anything I put on it. Maybe you're feeling weak in this season because you ain't standing close enough to the one who's straight in your life. Maybe you're feeling weak because you've been measuring off of some crooked stuff instead of the chief cornerstone who is your Savior. Maybe you're finding a hard way to go because you have not been living into your justification, into your rightness. Maybe some things need to change, but it's you that needs to line up. Am I talking to anybody in here today? Can we at least admit that all of us got some crooked stuff going on? Okay, some of y'all lying. The rest of y'all, you're with me. All of us have got some misaligned angles that we need to check. Because the more we delay checking that which is crooked, the more strength we forfeit to bear the weight of what's resting on us. All right, here's the last thing. You got to stand in your strong place. You got to rest in your rescue. But finally, you got to go for the good life. You may not have noticed this because we read through the text pretty quickly, but when you look at verse 19, the psalmist starts out at the gate. But when you get down to verse 25, he's talking from the house. There's movement. Wow. From outside to inside, from insecurity to security. He's moving from the gate in verse 19 to the house in 26. Oh God, something has shifted. Because see, as he goes further in, he comes to a place of blessing, which is what the house really does symbolizes. It symbolizes God's presence, and in that place there is blessing. Wow. So as he moves from the gate to the house, he utters these words. He says, now we can rejoice today, and we can be glad right now. Because God has done this thing, and it's so marvelous. marvelous. In other words, he said, when I look around at how God has been moving me from outside to inside, when I look around how I've shifted from the gate to the house, and I see God's favor on me, I can't help but recognize how marvelous this really is. And then he says these words. He asks God, God, give us success. Now, that caught my attention because success is not a word that I ordinarily associate with Scripture. Blessing, yeah. Favor, yeah. Prosperity, yeah. But success, that word didn't fit for me. So I had to go digging. I'm a nosy preacher. So I went back to my Hebrew lexicon and I said, now I got to understand, what do you mean success, God? And the word is powerful because when you look at it, success doesn't stand on its own, but in the Hebrew construction, give plus success is one word. Okay, you missed it. You don't have success, just success. Success is only success when it's been given. Wow. So it's two words in your English, Lord, give us success. But it's only one word, 3 words. It's only one word in the Hebrew. You can't separate out success from what God has given. And when you do, it ain't really success, according to Scripture. That blessed me, but then I had to dig a little bit deeper. I said, now wait a minute. Success goes with God giving, but still, what does it mean? And the word is kind of a military term. Because to give success literally means to force entry of a good thing, to advance into something where it was not, and to cut across whatever may be standing in the way to claim victory that is at hand. I about shouted in my study because I said, God, when I pray, give me success, what I'm praying to you is I need you, no matter what else is going on in my life, to force entry into all of it, to advance across everything and to cut across everything that may be standing in the way so that I can claim the victory that you've already provided. Oh God. That is what the psalmist is saying is a marvelous thing. God, give us this success in this day of our Trump presidency, in this day of the Gorsuch confirmation, in this day of Syria attacks, in this day of the Bannon drama that's going on. Don't be confused by what seems to be complicating your good life, because ain't none of that got nothing to do with what God is doing. Did you hear what I said? In spite of what may be going on in the White House, on Capitol Hill, on Wall Street, I go back to verse 17 and I see where I started. I will not die, but live. In other words, I'm going for the good life because God has already provided that for me, and I will testify to what the Lord has done. The Lord alone holds my future, and the promise of God is real in my life, and there is absolutely nothing that can change that. So when I say, God, give me success, I'm counting on the fact that God has already provided what I need, and no matter what may be standing in the way right now, God himself cuts across all of that, advances into my life, and is very real and present, because now I have the promise of the kingdom and all of its benefits. Anybody besides me going for the good life? I ain't crying about what's going on in my life right now. I done told you God is sovereign. He's got all that worked out. I'm not complaining about the things that aren't working according to my schedule or my control, because God knows what God is doing. Lord, you are welcome in my life. Have have your way. I wonder, and I'm done, if we really can pray that prayer. Lord, you're welcome.